Colorado Territory, 1875. The mountain pine cast long shadows across the valley as Logan Sutherland guided his horse up the winding trail toward his cabin. The last golden rays of sunset painted the western sky in shades of amber and crimson, a beauty that, like most in these parts, came with its own brand of danger. Night fell quick in the mountains, and with it came the cold that had claimed many an unprepared soul. At 26, Logan had already lived more life than most men twice his age. 6 years working cattle, 2 years scouting for the army, and now 3 years on his own homestead had hardened his body but left his spirit weary. The last autumn chill clung to his clothes as he approached the small log cabin nestled against the hillside, a structure he'd built with his own hands, a sanctuary where he answered to no one. That's how he preferred it, alone. The frontier taught harsh lessons about dependency. His father had learned that truth with a bullet from a business partner over a disputed gold claim when Logan was just 14. His mother had withered away waiting for a husband who would never return. Logan had sworn then that relying on others was a fool's gambit, better to stand alone than fall because someone else failed you. The thin wisp of smoke rising from his chimney stopped him cold. Logan drew his Winchester from its saddle scabbard, easing from his horse with practiced silence. No tracks around the front suggested riders, but someone had clearly entered his home. Outlaws, perhaps, or some desperate drifter seeking shelter. Either way, they'd chosen poorly. His finger tensed near the trigger as he approached, boots silent against the pine needle carpet surrounding his cabin. The door hung slightly ajar. Logan nudged it with his rifle barrel, the familiar creak of its hinges sounding unnaturally loud in the twilight stillness. Firelight spilled from inside, casting strange shadows across the rough-hewn floorboards. And there she stood beside his fireplace, holding something in her hands that made his blood run cold. A small tin box, his father's old strongbox, lay open on the table, the box he'd buried beneath the floorboards under his bed. The box that contained the only thing he had left of his family, a faded daguerreotype of his parents, his mother's wedding band, and the bullet that had killed his father. Things no stranger should have found. Things no one but Logan even knew existed, but even more shocking than the box was the woman herself. She couldn't have been more than 22, with pale blue eyes that widened at his entrance. Her honey-blonde hair was swept up in a practical arrangement, though wayward strands had escaped to frame an oval face of striking beauty. She wore a traveling dress of dove gray, modest but well-tailored, suggesting means beyond the typical settler. Not the appearance of a common thief or claim jumper. "Who the hell are you?" Logan demanded, rifle still raised. "And how did you know where to find that box?" The woman carefully set down the small wooden figurine she'd been examining. A carved wolf his father had made him as a child, another item from the box no one should have recognized. "My name is Olivia Grayson," she said, her voice steady despite the rifle pointed at her chest. "And I believe that item belonged to my uncle before your father acquired it." Logan felt a chill that had nothing to do with the autumn air. "Your uncle?" "Thomas Grayson," she said the name like Logan should recognize it. When he didn't, her expression shifted subtly. "The man who partnered with your father on the Silverbrook claim, the man your father shot." Logan's rifle wavered. "You've got it backwards, lady. Thomas Grayson shot my father in cold blood over that claim. I was there." Olivia's composure slipped just for an instant. "That's not possible." "My father received a letter." "Your father received a lie," Logan cut her off, lowering his rifle slightly but keeping it ready. "I watched that man gun down my father, then ride away like nothing happened. Left me to bury him alone." The memory burned, fresh as yesterday. "So I don't know what story brings you to my home, Miss Grayson, but you're standing on dangerous ground." She raised her chin slightly. "I have the letter. From Thomas to my father, written days before he died. He knew someone meant to kill him for his share of the claim. He suspected your father. That's why I came looking." "Looking for what exactly?" Logan's jaw tightened. "Whatever you think you know." "The map," she said simply. "The one showing the true Silverbrook vein. The one Thomas trusted your father with before he was murdered." Logan felt like he'd been struck. The map, his father had mentioned it once, delirious with fever after being shot. Logan had assumed it was nothing but the rambling of a dying man, but here stood this woman, saying it was real, that his father had been trusted with it. "There is no map," he said finally. And even if there was, why would I help the family of the man who killed my father? Because the real killer is still out there, Olivia said, her voice softening. And he's been looking for both our families for 15 years. They sat across from each other at Logan's rough-hewn table, the strongbox between them, firelight throwing uncertain shadows across their faces. Outside, the wind had picked up, rattling the single window and sending an occasional draft down the chimney that made the flames dance wildly. "Start talking," Logan said, pouring her a cup of coffee. He'd set his rifle aside but kept his revolver visible at his hip. Trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. Olivia wrapped her slender fingers around the tin cup, absorbing its warmth. "My father, George Grayson, received a letter from his brother Thomas a week before news came of his death. Thomas wrote that he and your father, Samuel Sutherland, had discovered something remarkable at Silverbrook, not just a vein, but a mother lode. Enough silver to set both families up for generations." Logan frowned. "Then why did he shoot my father?" "He didn't," her gaze was direct, unflinching. "Thomas wrote that a third partner existed, one whose name never appeared on any paper. A man named Victor Holloway, who provided the initial capital for the operation. Thomas discovered that Holloway had been skimming from their findings, selling ore under the table. When confronted, Holloway threatened both partners. The name meant nothing to Logan, but the story touched something buried deep in his memory. His father's warnings in those final days, his insistence that Logan stay close to the cabin. Thomas created a detailed map of the true vein location," Olivia continued. "He gave it to your father for safekeeping, believing Holloway wouldn't suspect him. The letter to my father was insurance. If anything happened, we would know who was responsible." "And yet your father believed mine was the killer," Logan said, bitterness edging his words. Olivia looked down. "After Thomas died, another letter arrived, supposedly from your father, confessing to the killing in a dispute over the claim. It arrived the same day news came that Samuel Sutherland had died too. My father believed the confession genuine." "A forgery," Logan said immediately. "My father would never." "I know that now," she interrupted gently. "The handwriting doesn't match the samples I've found in my research. I believe Holloway killed them both, then ensured the families would never communicate by planting seeds of hatred." Logan leaned back, mind racing. It made a terrible kind of sense. He remembered the stranger who'd appeared at their cabin after the funeral, asking questions about papers his father might have left behind. Logan had turned him away, claiming there was nothing. He'd been protecting the few mementos of his parents, but had he unwittingly been protecting something far more valuable? Why come looking now, after 15 years? Olivia hesitated. 3 months ago, a man came to our ranch in Kansas. He claimed to be an old friend of my uncle's, interested in purchasing some mining equipment Thomas had supposedly left with us. When my father said we had nothing of the sort, the man seemed disappointed. He left, but one of our ranch hands caught him trying to break into our house that night." She paused. "The hand was found dead the next morning. My father was attacked 2 weeks later." Logan's expression darkened. "Is he alive but badly injured? Before he fell unconscious, he told me about Thomas's letter and the map. He said to find Samuel Sutherland's son, that you might have what Holloway is looking for." Her eyes met his. "I believe Holloway has resurfaced because new survey techniques have made the Silverbrook claim valuable again. He needs that map before anyone else discovers what's really there. And he'll kill anyone who stands in his way," Logan finished, the implications settling heavily. "Including you now that you're here." "Including both of us," Olivia corrected quietly. Logan stared at the strongbox between them, memories of his father surfacing. The late nights when Samuel would sit at this very table, sketching on paper by lamplight, papers he'd always put away when Logan entered the room. Could those drawings have been the map Olivia described? "There's nothing in that box resembling a map," he said finally. "If it exists, my father hid it elsewhere." Olivia's shoulders slumped slightly. "Then we need to find it before Holloway arrives. He won't be far behind me." "We?" Logan raised an eyebrow. "There's no we here, Miss Grayson. I've survived this long by keeping to myself." "And how well has that worked for your happiness, Mr. Sutherland?" she challenged, something flashing in those pale blue eyes. "Besides, Holloway will kill us both regardless, At least together we have a fighting chance." Logan wanted to argue, to send her away with her wild theories and dangerous connections. But as the wind howled outside, something deeper than logic held him back. For 15 years, he'd believed one version of his father's death. If there was even a chance it had happened differently, that his father had died protecting something rather than in a greedy dispute, didn't he owe it to his memory to discover the truth? "One day," he said finally. "We search for one day. If we find nothing, you leave." Olivia nodded, relief visible in the softening of her expression. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Logan replied grimly. "If you're right about Holloway, you just might have brought death right to my doorstep." Dawn broke cold and clear over the mountains, frost sparkling on the meadow grasses surrounding Logan's cabin. They'd spent half the night searching through his father's old belongings, books, tools, the hidden compartment in the old writing desk, finding nothing resembling a map or directions to the Silverbrook vein. Logan stood on his porch, scanning the valley below with his spyglass, while Olivia prepared breakfast inside. No movement caught his eye, but the feeling of borrowed time weighed heavily. If Holloway was truly hunting them, their isolation was both protection and vulnerability. Inside, the smell of coffee and frying bacon filled the small cabin. Logan had to admit there was something appealing about returning to a warm meal prepared by someone else, even under these circumstances. 15 years of solitary meals had never bothered him before, but something about Olivia's presence made the contrast stark. "Any sign of pursuit?" she asked as he closed the door behind him. "Nothing yet." Logan hung his hat on the peg by the door. "But that doesn't mean we're safe." Olivia nodded, setting 2 plates on the table. She changed into a simpler dress of deep blue cotton, practical for the day's work ahead. Her hair was braided and coiled at the nape of her neck, revealing the graceful curve of her jawline. Logan found himself noticing these details against his will. "I've been thinking," she said, pouring coffee into his cup. "Your father was a carpenter by trade before he turned to mining, correct?" Logan nodded, surprised by her knowledge. "Built half the structures in Central City before silver fever took him." A man like that, detail-oriented, precise, he wouldn't have just sketched a map on paper where anyone could find it. Her eyes lit with possibility. He might have hidden it in his handiwork. Logan paused, bacon halfway to his mouth. His handiwork. Something he built, something only he would recognize as important. She gestured around the cabin. "Did he help construct this place?" "Built it himself, mostly. I was learning the trade, helped where I could." Logan's gaze traveled the familiar walls, seeing them with new eyes. "Every beam, every joint." "What was the last thing he worked on?" Olivia pressed, "before he died?" Logan set down his fork, memory stirring. "The hearth. He was particular about it, said a proper hearth was the heart of any home." He moved toward the stone fireplace, examining it closely perhaps for the first time in years. "I always thought it odd, how much time he spent on these decorative elements." The stones around the fireplace were arranged in a pleasing pattern, but certain ones stood out, flat river stones with unusual markings. Logan had always assumed they were merely aesthetic choices, but now. "Help me move this," he said suddenly, pulling the heavy wooden chair that had always sat beside the fireplace. Behind it, partially obscured by shadow and soot, a pattern of inlaid stones formed what might be mistaken for random decoration. But viewed together, with the morning light hitting them just so, they created an unmistakable topographical map. "Dear God," Olivia whispered, crouching beside him, "he built it into your home." Logan traced the pattern with his fingertips, recognizing the contours of Silverbrook Canyon. A small piece of smoky quartz marked what must be the hidden entrance to the true vein. "He made sure only I would find it," Logan said softly. "It's been here all along." The realization brought a tightness to his chest. 15 years of believing his father died over greed, when all this time he'd died protecting this secret. "Protecting Logan, we should copy it," Olivia suggested, already retrieving paper from her satchel. "Before." The distant sound of approaching horses cut her off. Logan was on his feet instantly, moving to the window that faced down the valley trail. "3 riders," he said grimly, "coming fast." Olivia's face paled. "Holloway." "Take what you need and head out the back." Logan grabbed his rifle and ammunition belt. "There's a trail through the pines that leads to higher ground." I'll hold them here and join you when I can. I won't leave you to face them alone, she protested. This isn't a debate. Logan checked his rifle's action with practiced efficiency. I've defended this place before. I know its strengths and weaknesses. Against ordinary bandits, perhaps, not against men who have hunted the same secret for 15 years. She stood her ground, chin raised defiantly. I can shoot, Mr. Sutherland. My father made certain of it. Logan wanted to argue but recognized the determination in her eyes. The same stubborn resolve he'd seen in his own reflection countless times. Fine, he conceded. Take position upstairs. There's a window that overlooks the approach. But if things go badly, you use that back trail, understand. This isn't your fight. It became my fight when Holloway attacked my father, she replied, already moving toward the ladder that led to the cabin's small loft. As she climbed, Logan caught himself admiring more than just her determination. He pushed the thought aside, focusing on the approaching threat. 3 against 2 weren't impossible odds, but they had the element of surprise on their side. He positioned himself beside the front window, watching as the riders approached. The leader was a tall man with silver streaks in his dark beard, wearing a black duster despite the morning warmth. Something in his confident posture suggested he was used to being obeyed and feared. The riders stopped a careful distance from the cabin, just beyond effective rifle range. Logan Sutherland, the leader called out. I'm an old associate of your father's. Name's Victor Holloway, just want to talk business. Logan exchanged a glance with Olivia, who had positioned herself at the loft window, her father's revolver steady in her hands. She gave a small nod, confirming what they both already knew. This was indeed the man who had murdered both their family members. What business would that be? Logan called back, keeping his rifle out of sight for now. Your father left something with me years ago, Holloway replied, his voice carrying easily in the mountain air. Valuable papers. I'm prepared to pay handsomely for their return. My father's been dead 15 years, Logan answered. Anything he had died with him. Holloway was silent for a moment, then spurred his horse forward a few paces. I have reason to believe otherwise, particularly since Miss Grayson arrived yesterday. The casual mention of Olivia sent a chill through Logan. They'd been watched. I tracked her all the way from Kansas, figured she might lead me right to what I'm looking for. Logan felt rather than saw Olivia tense above him. I don't know any Miss Grayson, Logan lied smoothly, and I don't take kindly to strangers making demands on my property. Holloway's laugh held no humor. Boy, I've been patient for 15 years. That patience has run out. You have until noon to bring me those papers, or we're coming in to find them ourselves. He turned his horse. Oh, and tell Miss Grayson her father sends his regards. Shame about the gangrene setting in. Bullet wounds can be so troublesome. As the riders retreated to the tree line to wait, Logan saw Olivia's face go white with shock and rage. He's lying, Logan said quietly. Trying to provoke you. What if he's not? Her voice trembled. My father was stable when I left, but... That's exactly what he wants, to make you reckless. Logan climbed the ladder partway, meeting her gaze directly. We stick to the plan. We hold them off, then escape with the map. Olivia took a deep breath, steadying herself. You're right. She looked at him with new determination. But when the time comes, Holloway is mine. Logan recognized the look in her eyes. He'd carried it himself for 15 years. Vengeance, it had shaped his entire life, kept him isolated, suspicious. But seeing it reflected in her made him recognize something else, the cost of living that way. We'll face him together, he promised. But first, we need to survive the next few hours. Noon approached with excruciating slowness. Logan had used the time to prepare the cabin for defense, moving furniture for cover, positioning extra ammunition at strategic points, ensuring their potential escape route remained viable. All the while, his mind worked on their predicament from every angle. 3 armed men against the 2 of them, poor odds in a straight fight. But Logan knew these mountains, knew how to disappear into them. If they could just hold Holloway off long enough to escape with the map. They're moving, Olivia called quietly from her position upstairs. Logan peered through the narrow window. Holloway and his men had mounted up, riding slowly toward the cabin. But something in their approach troubled him. They seemed too confident, too casual for men about to charge into gunfire. Something's wrong, he muttered. There. A crash from the back of the cabin confirmed his fears. While Holloway and two men approached from the front, a fourth man had circled behind. The sound of splintering wood told Logan they'd breached the back door. "Olivia, down!" he shouted, already pivoting to face the new threat. The intruder burst through the door, pistol raised, but Logan was faster. His first shot caught the man in the shoulder, spinning him backward. The second shot went wide as Logan dove for cover behind the heavy oak table he'd overturned earlier. Gunfire erupted from outside as Holloway and his men opened fire on the cabin, bullets splintering through the windows and thudding into the log walls. Olivia returned fire from upstairs, her shots measured and precise. "We need to move," Logan called up to her. "They've got us surrounded." "The map," she began. "Leave it," he interrupted. "We know where it is, we can come back." A bullet splintered the wood near Logan's head, showering him with fragments. He returned fire through the broken window, satisfaction flaring briefly as one of Holloway's men tumbled from his saddle. "Sutherland," Holloway's voice boomed from outside. "We can end this peaceful-like. Just send out the Grayson woman and the map, and you can live out your days in this godforsaken wilderness." "Go to hell, Holloway," Logan shouted back, reloading his rifle. Olivia was making her way down from the loft, staying low to avoid the bullets still coming through the upper windows. She reached his side, her face smudged with gunpowder but her eyes clear. "They'll rush us soon," she said. "Once they realize we're not surrendering. Then we don't give them the chance." Logan nodded toward the stone hearth, the only part of the cabin likely to survive if things went badly. "We need to preserve the map somehow." Olivia's eyes widened with understanding. She crawled to the hearth while Logan provided covering fire. Using a small knife from her boot, she carefully scratched key markings into the back of her silver locket, a simplified version of the stone map, but enough to find the location again. "Done," she said, securing the locket around her neck once more. A momentary lull in the gunfire made them both tense. Logan strained to hear movement outside, catching the soft crunch of boots on pine needles approaching the front door. "They're coming in," he whispered. "When I engage them, you slip out the back." "Not without you," she insisted, gripping his arm. "One of us needs to survive to find that silver," he argued. "To make them pay for what they did to our families." Before she could protest further, the front door burst open. Logan shoved Olivia toward the back room and rose to meet the attack, firing rapidly. The first man through the door fell immediately, but Holloway was right behind him, firing a quick succession of shots that sent Logan diving behind a support beam. "15 years I've waited, boy," Holloway called, moving cautiously into the cabin. "Your father thought he was so clever, hiding that map where no one would find it." "My father was protecting his family," Logan replied, trying to keep Holloway's attention while Olivia escaped. "Something you wouldn't understand." Holloway laughed. "Family. Samuel was ready to take the money and run, leave your mother behind. Did he tell you that part? She came to me when she found out, heartbroken." Logan froze, the implication striking him like a physical blow. "You're lying. Ask yourself why she kept visiting the mining office after hours." Holloway's voice dripped with malice. "Samuel caught us together. That's why he and Thomas fought that day. Your father shot first, only Thomas was quicker." The words hit their target, planting seeds of doubt that momentarily paralyzed Logan. Could his memories be wrong? He'd been young, the shooting chaotic. The moment's hesitation nearly cost him everything. Holloway lunged around the corner, pistol raised. Logan barely managed to deflect the weapon as it fired, the bullet embedding itself in the ceiling. They grappled fiercely, crashing into furniture as each man fought for control. Holloway was strong, but age had slowed him. Logan managed to twist the pistol from his grasp, sending it skittering across the floor. But Holloway drew a knife from his belt, slashing wildly and catching Logan across the forearm. Pain lanced through him as blood flowed freely from the wound. Logan stumbled backward, searching desperately for a weapon within reach. His rifle lay several feet away, knocked aside in the struggle. Holloway advanced, a predatory smile spreading beneath his silver-streaked beard. "Your father died begging for his life," he taunted. "Let's see if the son has more spine." A gunshot rang out, impossibly loud in the confined space. Holloway jerked, a look of surprise crossing his face as he looked down at the spreading red stain on his chest. He turned slowly to see Olivia standing in the doorway to the back room, Holloway's own dropped pistol steady in her hands. "That's for my father," she said coldly, "and for Thomas Grayson." Holloway opened his mouth as if to speak, but only blood came out. He collapsed to his knees, then pitched forward onto the rough-hewn floorboards. In the sudden silence, Logan could hear birds singing outside, oblivious to the violence that had just unfolded. He looked at Olivia, seeing her in a new light, not just beautiful but fierce and loyal in ways he hadn't expected. "You were supposed to run," he said, pressing his hand against his bleeding arm. "And you were supposed to duck," she countered, quickly moving to his side. She tore a strip from her petticoat to bind his wound. "I told you, we face him together." As she worked, her fingers gentle despite the urgency of the situation, Logan felt something shift inside him. The walls he'd built over 15 years of solitude began to crumble in the face of her unwavering courage. "His man outside," Logan began. "Won't be a problem," she assured him. "Your shot found its mark. The one you wounded at the back door fled." Logan nodded, relief mingling with exhaustion as the fighting adrenaline began to fade. "We should go, in case he returns with reinforcements." Olivia finished bandaging his arm, her face close enough that he could count the faint freckles across her nose, smell the lavender soap she must have used that morning. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for not running for—" She silenced him with a brief, impulsive kiss that startled them both with its intensity. When she pulled back, color had risen to her cheeks. "We should gather what we need," she said practically, though her voice had softened. "The journey to Silverbrook will take us at least 2 days." Logan found himself smiling despite everything. The pain, the destruction of his home, the uncertainty ahead. For the first time in 15 years, he wasn't facing that uncertainty alone. "Then we'd better get started," he agreed, rising carefully to his feet. "I have a feeling the real adventure is just beginning." The journey to Silverbrook Canyon took 3 days rather than 2, slowed by caution and the need to travel discreetly. They avoided main trails and settlements, uncertain whether Holloway had other associates who might continue his mission. Logan's wound, while painful, had been clean, and Olivia's careful tending prevented infection. Those days of travel revealed more to Logan than years of solitude had taught him about himself. He discovered he enjoyed sharing meals around a campfire, pointing out constellations in the night sky to someone who listened with genuine interest. He found himself laughing at Olivia's dry observations about frontier life, something he couldn't remember doing since before his father died. And in turn, he learned about her, how she'd grown up on a prosperous cattle ranch in Kansas, educated by private tutors but more interested in her father's business dealings. How she defied convention by learning to shoot, ride, and track alongside the ranch hands. How she'd never quite fit the mold of proper society, too independent for most suitors' comfort. "Did you leave a broken-hearted gentleman behind in Kansas?" Logan asked one evening as they sat beside their small fire, the mountains rising like sentinels around them. Olivia laughed softly. "No gentleman would have his heart broken by me. I've been deemed too headstrong for matrimonial harmony by most eligible men in 3 counties. She poked the fire with a stick, sending sparks dancing upward. "My father despaired of finding me a suitable match." "Their loss," Logan said simply, surprising himself with his candor. She looked up at him, firelight gilding her features. "What about you? Surely some frontier woman has tried to tame the solitary Mr. Sutherland." "Few women venture this far into the mountains," he replied, "and those who do are usually already spoken for." "That's not an answer," she observed, her blue eyes seeing too much. Logan sighed. "Truth is, I haven't let anyone close enough to try. After my parents, I figured attachments were just opportunities for pain." Olivia was quiet for a moment. "And now?" The question hung between them, heavy with implication. Logan looked at her across the flames, allowing himself to acknowledge what had been building since that first night in his cabin. "Now I'm not so certain," he admitted. Their eyes held for a long moment before Olivia looked away, but her small smile told Logan all he needed to know. There would be time for more words later. For now, this understanding between them was enough. Silverbrook Canyon appeared much as Logan remembered it from childhood visits with his father. A narrow ravine cutting between towering granite cliffs, a small creek threading its way through the center. The abandoned mining camp at its mouth stood in eerie stillness, weathered structures leaning precariously after years of neglect. Using Olivia's locket and their memories of the hearth map, they made their way deeper into the canyon than the original mining operations had ventured. The quartz marker had indicated a location near a distinctive formation resembling a wolf's head, a detail Logan might have dismissed as coincidence if not for the carved wolf figurine his father had made him as a child. There, Olivia pointed to an outcropping half-hidden behind scrub pine. That must be it. They secured their horses and approached on foot, Logan leading with his rifle ready. The entrance was well concealed, not a proper mine shaft but a narrow crevice in the rock face that widened as they squeezed through. Inside, the temperature dropped noticeably. Logan lit the small lantern they'd brought, its glow revealing a natural cavern that extended deeper into the mountain. And along one wall, unmistakable in the lamplight, a vein of silver so pure it seemed to capture and multiply the light itself. "My God," Olivia breathed, touching the gleaming ore with reverent fingers. Thomas was right. Logan examined the vein, his experienced eye confirming what they'd both immediately recognized. "This isn't just valuable," he said quietly. "This is a fortune. Enough to set both families up for generations," Olivia finished, echoing Thomas Grayson's words from the letter. "Just as they intended." They stood together in the cool darkness, the weight of their discovery settling around them. This was what their fathers had died protecting, not just wealth, but a legacy meant for their children. "We'll need to file a proper claim," Logan said eventually. "Establish legal ownership before we begin extraction." Olivia nodded, but her expression had grown pensive. "Half for each family, just as our fathers intended." "Of course," Logan agreed. He hesitated, then added, "though that might be simpler if the families were joined." Olivia turned to him, surprise evident in her features. "Mr. Sutherland, are you speaking of a business arrangement, or something else entirely?" Logan set the lantern down carefully on a rocky shelf, then took her hands in his. They were small but strong, capable hands that had proven their worth many times over their journey. "When I found you in my cabin that day, I thought you were bringing trouble into my life," he said honestly. "I didn't realize you were bringing something I'd been missing for 15 years. "And what's that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Hope," he answered simply. "A reason to build something beyond mere survival." He squeezed her hands gently. "I know it's sudden. We've only known each other days, not months or years. But out here, life doesn't always give you the luxury of time." "No," she agreed, a smile slowly spreading across her face. "It doesn't." "I'm not offering just for the silver," he clarified quickly. "Even without it." This time she was the one who silenced him, but not with words. Her kiss was confident now, certain in a way their first hasty embrace hadn't been. Logan pulled her closer, marveling at how perfectly she fit against him, how right this felt despite every wall he'd built around his heart. When they finally parted, her blue eyes were bright even in the dim lantern light. "I think," she said with playful formality, "that such a significant business proposal requires careful consideration, Mr. Sutherland." "Of course, Miss Grayson," he replied, struggling to keep his expression serious. "How much time would you require?" She pretended to contemplate the question. "At least until we reach the nearest town with a proper church." Logan laughed then, the sound echoing strangely in the cavern, as if releasing 15 years of stored solitude in a single moment. "I believe that can be arranged." They emerged from the cavern into late afternoon sunlight, blinking as their eyes readjusted. The canyon spread before them, beautiful in its rugged way. Logan looked at it now with different eyes, not as a reminder of loss, but as the foundation of a future he hadn't dared imagine until Olivia Grayson had appeared in his cabin. "What will we do with it?" she asked, gazing down at the canyon. "The silver, I mean." Logan considered the question. "Build something that lasts," he said finally, "something worthwhile." "A legacy," she agreed, slipping her hand into his. "For both our families." As they made their way back to their horses, Logan found himself thinking not of the wealth beneath the mountain, but of the cabin they would rebuild together, its hearth once again the heart of a home filled with warmth and family, the way his father had intended all along. The frontier had taught him that reliance on others was dangerous, that isolation was safety. But Olivia had shown him a different truth, that some risks were worth taking, that the real safety lay in having someone to face the wilderness beside you. As they rode away from Silverbrook Canyon, Logan Sutherland, no longer alone, felt the last of his father's burden lift from his shoulders. The map had led not just to silver, but to something far more precious. A future bright with possibilities, and a love strong enough to overcome even the harshest frontier.